Yo everyone, something huge finally came. Okay, that is crazy to say. Anyway, the July and August posts are finally out, and they cover a new subsection, which is technically replacing a subsection already existing in the game, and the Surface Zone rework. I'm going to be talking all about it, but I will warn you, this video is unscripted because I am lazy and only just started working on it now, so let's go! We'll start with the July Patreon post, which has the description, Outbreak Detected in Xenobiological Containment Sublevel. I'm surprised I was able to say that first try. Inside the post, we find out that this new sublevel is actually a reworked 173/049 subzone. It aims to improve level design and gameplay while also introducing some new features. So let's get into them. Starting off with this first screenshot, we can see that the subzone is going to be way more complex, having multiple props, different levels, etc. In the bottom left here, we can see what presumably is SCP-049's room, which has an observation room that is actually an observation room and not an armory for some reason. Then on the left of that, we can see 173's room that has its observation deck. But, fun fact, you can actually go up there. There's some stairs as you can see over here on the right. Some other small things we can make out is that there's a crashed forklift in between this kind of gate thing here. There's a storage room of some sort over here, and there appears to be what seems like a boarded off room up here, but I don't know what this is truthfully. I assume it'll just be some out of bounds implied space kind of thing. In the second screenshot, we can get more of a feel for the layout of the actual map, and we can see that there's a bunch of different colors and stuff, so let me explain. These big red blocks are death pits, these blue blocks are elevators, these yellow lines are gates, and these green lines are doors. Oh yeah, also all the gray shapes are props. As you can see, there's also this up arrow, which signifies that there's a second level, so we'll get into that in a second, but there's two very important things that you might have already noticed. Firstly, there's two blue blocks, so yes, that does mean that there is going to be two elevators down into the subzone. The coolest thing about this, though, is that this isn't just two elevators in the same room. These two elevators are going to lead into different rooms in heavy containment, which means you can use this subzone as a sort of shortcut in between two places. Here's a look at the room, which I believe is just a straight hallway when it comes to the heavy containment zone layout. As you can see, there's a little mini elevator here on the right and a ramp going up to what I presume to be the elevator going down. There's a nice little observation deck here too, which is cool. There's also the elevators themselves that are way more wide, as we can see here. They look pretty cool and are designed with the intention of reducing camping potential, which is, you know, always nice. There's also some experimenting going on with a system that will prevent elevators from spawning right next to each other. This system would be applied across all zones. Back to the layout, and the second thing you might have noticed, SCP-268 Containment Chamber. SCP-268, as you may already know, is the hat that lets you become invisible. This is really interesting because the only SCP item we've had to have a dedicated room is SCP-127 that was just added last update. I do like the idea of one-of-a-kind SCPs having their own containment rooms as it makes them feel a bit more special, but I am curious how this is going to feel considering guards could just snatch it from everyone else. I mean, I guess they do already, but now they know the exact location to go to. Anyways, let's move on to the upper level, and as you can see, there's not really much to it, just the stairs up, there's some doors, kind of like a lounge area maybe, the observation room, but there is some vents that can allow you to get to different places, these purple boxes and lines being the exits to said vents. Here's some screenshots during the art pass of this area, but keep in mind this is obviously subject to change. And the final thing to note is that this is a separate project from 15.0, so this most likely won't be in any upcoming updates. Now, let's get into the August post, and I will say this one is a very important one, especially for longtime players of the game. The last time we heard anything official about the Surface Zone was back in 2018. That is over 7 years ago now. For reference, I've been a player of this game since pretty much a month after it came out, so I'll be honest, I'm a little scared with how this is gonna be, but I'm hoping all for the best. In this first screenshot, we can see an aerial view of the Surface Zone map as it is right now, but do keep in mind this is all just gray box. This is acting as a lighting showcase in Blender, so this isn't representative at all of what the final result is going to be. They go on to say that this is the final iteration of the gray box, and that they describe the map as a almost fortress-like interpretation of the Surface Zone, with large walls scaling down the mountain it's built upon. And of course, right in the middle is the returning admin tower. Just like the subzone we looked at earlier, we get a layout map of what this is going to look like, but do be aware that these names are placeholders and are not the final identities of these areas. They go on to mention that the new surface zone compared to the old one is, funnily enough, huge, and that this is going to be compensated with the amount of interconnectivity in between the different spaces with all these different paths going back and forth. The main goals of this new surface zone is to create a fun map to play on that's easy to navigate, avoid minute-long walks that funnel you into one path, make a reasonably sized playable space, have a map that can act as both a fun combat arena and a good transition between you and the interior map, and creating a visually appealing map that matches the tone and setting of the game, narratively and artistically. They later mention the current state of the project, which apparently it has completed the gray box phase, and the map's layout, routes, game mechanics, spawn locations, and other design objectives have all been finished or are near completion, which means now it's only really being looked at by the art team. Apparently there is now an established vision on how the map will play, how it will connect to the rest of the facility, and how things like respawns and elevators will work, which apparently they'll be noticeably different, but I guess we're gonna have to wait for that in the future. There's not too much I have to really say about this actually, because they haven't really detailed any of the new gameplay stuff, and obviously it's just in the gray box phase, but I will mention the things that I noticed. Firstly, in this first screenshot, we can see the text section 00 down here, but more importantly, up here, we can see some text, which I believe says bulletproof glass, which means that you won't be able to snipe from all the way over there to the spawn, which is nice. Secondly, speaking of the spawn, is that there's only one respawn point, which makes me think that the MTF and Chaos are going to spawn in the same spot, which I'm interested to see how they implement, both animations-wise and gameplay. The third thing I have to mention is that we are finally getting a Cassie room, apparently, over at the Warhead control up here at the top. I'm so excited to see this. I really hope we can make our own custom announcements, use like the preset announcements like MTF spawning and stuff. It's going to be sick, I hope. But back to the post. They do say that they have been regularly playtesting the current gray box to make sure it's as fun as possible, and eliminating unfair positions. They've also apparently gone through 10 different iterations over the years to get to this point, with each scrap design giving them some new perspective on how to make it the best it can be, and that feedback has started becoming more positive with each iteration, which is a good sign. To end off the post, we're given an explanation on why it took so long, and we're given some cut content, so let's get into that real quick. Apparently, Surface Zone has had a long history of going in and out of development, starting all the way back in 2018 after the Something Huge's incoming post released. Back then, they were more disorganized and there wasn't any proper planning for the update, meaning it kind of fell by the wayside while they were working on Mega Patch 2. They were going to release Surface Zone in Mega Patch 3, rest in peace my man, but most of the people in management back then either left or changed position on the team, making Northwood shift their priorities. Between Scopophobia and Refracted Reality, the game had a lot of extremely old code, which was holding them back from updating the game quite significantly. This meant that while they were reworking the entire game, the level design didn't really have anything to do, so they would work on smaller projects like the Candy Room, 939's Containment Chamber, etc. However, during this, they were working on early concepts for a Surface Zone, which you can see here. Apparently, we'll see more scrap designs of Surface Zone in the future during our memorandums post, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss whenever I cover that. Finally, we get to how the current Surface Zone iteration came to be, which was during the development of 13.0, UIU, one of the level designers, became the manager and had to get the team up to scratch. They made all the new hires go through an entire training period, and once complete, the team was finally ready to begin working on the larger scale projects. This was happening pretty much as the 14.0 Heavy Duty update was coming out, which was obviously the Heavy Containment Zone rework, so once it stopped being a visual rework and turned into an entire zone rework, the level design team had the experience they needed to make something huge. Apparently it's unknown if the Surface Zone will actually be able to make it into 15.0 because they don't want to rush it due to a deadline, but they do say they have a major edition ready for 15.0 even if this isn't Surface Zone. I think we pretty much all know that this major edition for 15.0 is going to be a new playable SCP, and I will say I am kind of disappointed if Surface Zone doesn't come in with it. I mean, imagine how cool it would be if you have literally the two biggest things everyone has been waiting for so long, and it's not in the same update. It'd be kind of like two halves, I guess. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm happy to just have one for a new update, but I just feel like it'd be kind of a missed opportunity, if you know what I mean. But yeah, I'm very excited for 15.0, and I hope you guys are too. If you are, make sure to subscribe or join my memberships, which have just opened up recently. Shoutouts to Otakubee, Greyy, Delusionalsky, Ayden, LoudFeet, and Black Furniture. Thank you, and have a nice day.